All right, everybody, welcome. We're going to get started right now. So I hope you guys are all comfortable and ready to go. We have quite a few people on the call with us. And I'm just going to give you a warm welcome to what we are doing, which is the Formathon information session. The goal really is here to give you as much details as possible for you to be able to make the right decision as to whether the Formathon is the right program for you to experience. If you're already registered, that's great. Hopefully we'll be able to give you more context and introduce you to the people who you'll also be participating with as you go forward with the Formathon program. So welcome everybody. I'm gonna officially introduce myself. My name is Layal El-Hadi. I'm the Executive Director of FinTech Cadence. I also have on the call with me Geraldine, who is the Director of Operations at FinTech Cadence, and Nicholas, who is the Head of Marketing at FinTech Cadence. So strong team behind the scenes. If there's any issues or challenges, let us know. A few quick things to let you guys know is you're automatically muted. If you do have any questions or if you want us to know anything, you can do so by activating it on the chat. So you can send a message. I already see Ruben has sent a message on there. So feel free to send us any messages that you have throughout the conversation on the chat. We are also activating the Q&A function. So you'll see that if you want to ask a question and perhaps you don't know if it's the right time or not, just send it on the Q&A. We're watching it and we'll be able to answer it. Maybe not directly, but at some point we'll get through the questions. And lastly, if you do want to speak or want to be unmuted, you can just raise your hands and we'll be able to do that. All right, so I'm going to test to see if everybody's ready first by seeing if you all can just write hello on the chat. Yes, Nathan, the session is directly, it will be recorded, yeah. Hello, Mendel. Great, okay, so I'm seeing who of you are engaged. Great, perfect. All right, well, welcome to all of you guys. Very excited to see you. Great, so we'll get started. I'm gonna let you know quickly what we're gonna be doing and what we're gonna be covering today. Hello, Ahmed. So the agenda is really giving you the opportunity to get to know who's gonna be participating in the Formathon or who's thinking about participating in the Formathon. Explaining a little bit what open innovation is. We often talk about it in FinTech Cadence as it's one of our strong points and it's one of the areas we really think is helps ecosystems grow, helps develop ecosystems, brings startups in direct relationship with financial institutions or incumbents. And so we really believe in open innovation. So we're going to be giving you guys the idea of why open innovation has been strongly linked, especially within our ecosystem in FinTech, leading a little bit into the value proposition of the Formathon and the importance of it. This is where you guys will really start getting a better idea of what's happening, and that is around the Formathon journey. So we're going to be explaining to you what the 3 weeks looks like, what you should be expecting. We're also going to give you a better idea of what the challenges are. So what does it mean to have a challenge? What does it mean to participate in the challenge? And how do you know which is the right challenge for you specifically based on what you want to achieve? Also be quickly introducing some of the partners that will be active during the Formathon. Everything is remote, everything is online, so it doesn't matter where you are in Canada. But it's still important to let you know what the logistics are going to be like, what are the platforms we're going to be using, and how you will be engaged in the timing and everything. So we'll be going over that. And lastly, I want to be covering what industry night means. We're very excited for this. So what does that actually mean? What does it look like concretely? Why is it important to you? And then, of course, the finals and what I'm hoping you guys are all excited about, which is the prizes as well. And we'll wrap up with some success stories. And there is an official Q&A at the end, but I would encourage you, please, if you have any questions, just throw them up right away, whether in the chat or the Q&A feature that I mentioned earlier. And then I'll be able to answer it. I know you guys can't speak, but it's still good for me to be able to engage with you as we're going through some of this information. So let's get started and let's start getting to know who's here. We're going to launch a poll really quickly. So for those of you who are attendees, the poll will launch. Maybe a few things for you to let us know. 1, how would you best describe yourself? And 2, where are you based out of? So it's really important for us as well to get a good idea of who's here and where you guys are engaging. I see Alberta is being represented. Valerie, I'm guessing that's you. Welcome. It's been great to see you in all the sessions that we've been having. So very excited to see your participation in the Formathon. Good. Okay, so I think almost everybody has voted. Perfect. So Gigi, if we can show the results. There you guys go. So you see we have almost half of the people who are here are students, which is great to see. The other half is working professionals. So that's always phenomenal because then you get to bring the industry experience as well. And not surprisingly, we are a Montreal-based organization, although we address all of Canada. 83% is based out of Quebec. And we have some representation from Ontario, Alberta, and BC. So that's great to see as well. Thank you for that, Gigi. Just to give you guys an idea as well who's there. So I know some of you guys know who we are. I won't spend too much time talking about us, but I do think it's important for those of you who don't know who we are to understand why FinTech Cadence is what it is. And so we'll start off by giving you a quick introduction to who we are as an organization. We're an ecosystem builder. And the main purpose of what we do is trying to really foster the FinTech ecosystem from a grassroots level. And so if you're wondering what does that really mean, I'm going to go over what you have on the slides, but just very simply, we're an organization that focuses from a hint of an idea all the way up till pre-Series A of a business. Anything post pre-Series A, we have a lot of partners that we work with, including Luge Capital, Holt Accelerator, Startup in Residence, District 3, and many, many others. But we really are the pre-Series A to, I think I might have an idea, how do I know if it's a good idea or not? So that's where we focus as an organization. We have 3 main pillars that fulfill this area. One is educate. So we do a FinTech certificate where we try and expand and bring the ecosystem forward in terms of FinTech in-depth knowledge. I see we have some of the students who have participated this year in the certificate. Mohammed and Nathan, welcome. Marie-Claire aussi. It's nice to see all of you guys here too. The next pillar that we have is support. So that's what I was saying in terms of supporting FinTech startups really. So again, if you have an idea, so we help support create that idea and we help you get to the stage of I'm ready for either investment or I'm ready to sell, I'm ready for revenue, etc. We really are there along the journey with you and supporting you guys there. And then the last pillar that we have, and it's really the secret sauce, if you will, is the collaboration. We collaborate directly with financial institutions where we identify what their challenges are. We identify what opportunities they may have, and we either link them to startups or we link them to talent, or we work directly with them in order to solve some of those challenges or opportunities that they see. So that's what we do as an organization. Very simply, again, we're really looking to foster the FinTech ecosystem from a grassroots level. Conversation, education, startups, collaboration, all of those different keywords are really where we're focusing on. And so, so leading us then to, well, then what is open innovation and why is that important? I'm going to get to that in a second. But actually, I'm just going to ask you guys, there's no poll here, I know, but I just want to ask on the chat, how many of you guys had not heard of FinTech Cadence prior to this information session? Okay, James, perfect. Well, I hope that was thorough and clear for you. Alexandra, I see you as well. Perfect. Okay, Kaveh, great, okay. Glad to see that because it's important for us to know as well where you guys are coming from, what the context is. Okay, Louisa, perfect. Thank you guys. Right, so what I'm gonna get into now, Alexandra, I see you've raised your hands. Did you have a question or were you just answering my, have you heard of FinTech Cadence prior? And while you're answering that, I'm gonna answer, perfect, thank you, Alexandra. I'm gonna answer Mendel's question because it is one of my favorite questions, which is FinTech stands for finance and tech. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. We might be a lot of things in our sector, but I don't know how creative we are when it comes to naming our verticals in our sectors. For example, InsurTech, which is insurance and technology, PropTech, property and technology, RegTech, regulation and technology. So you'll start seeing that as you're entering the ecosystem, but it is fun to see how creative we can be. I see that there's a question asked as well about IP. I'm going to come back to that as we go through it. So just note it's well received and we'll come back to that. So thank you. Okay, so let's get into open innovation and the importance of the Formathon. So as I mentioned before, we work directly with financial institutions, meaning we see what incumbents or people who have been in the industry for a long time are doing when it comes to products they're offering to either consumers or other businesses when it comes to financial products. But there's been a lag in terms of the innovation processes and what's been happening. And what I mean by that is the innovation solutions are happening internally in these companies, but they're not necessarily outsourcing or trying to figure out, well, what other ways can we collaborate with the ecosystem, whether it's the talent that I mentioned earlier, or whether it's the startups that already exist. And that's where we see open innovation has become one of the strongest conversation pieces around pushing innovation forward in FinTech specifically. There's lots of competitions that are touching on the open innovation ones. I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one is Desjardins has a cooperathon. So maybe if you've participated in the cooperathon or heard of the cooperathon before, if you can just let us know on the chat. Nathan, I should be seeing your name on there. So the cooperathon is a Desjardins initiative, which is trying to solve social issues across the different sector that it's in or the different community that it's in. Yes, thank you, Nathan. Excellent. So they break it down into different areas. One of the areas they focus on is the financial sector, and that's where we support them. So they really are saying to everybody in anywhere, if you're a student, if you're a professional, how are you going to make education better for everybody? How are you going to make the agricultural industry more sustainable? Finance, how are you going to make people more prepared and more aware of their financial challenges and struggles? So it's really an open innovation social challenge. The other challenge that I want to give you as an example is National Bank, which just closed 2 weeks ago. And that was an open innovation challenge around wealth management. So you have a financial institution, an incumbent, National Bank, that says to anyone, show us what solutions you have around wealth management that will improve Canadian lives for the better. We will also give you a prize of $100,000 so that you can continue building your product, and we will work with you as a bank. So that's a great example of an open innovation challenge. And the third open innovation challenge I want to give you is exactly why you're here today, which is the Formathon. So it's us as FinTech Cadence saying, we know there's lots of opportunities here. We know there are a lot of challenges, especially in the context of what we're living through in today's day and age. What can we do to bring all of these talented individuals who are interested in either entering FinTech or have been in the financial sector for a while and really want to build their own product or add value to the sector? And that's where we've built and developed the Formathon. I mean, I'm going to touch on here really quickly is that we really think FinTech can be that big social impactful change. And now more than ever, as I was saying earlier, and through that, we see that's happening and what we as an organization are focusing on and what we hope the Formathon will be able to achieve towards the end. Perfect. So quick question again, just to see how much information you guys have on your side. So we're going to launch a second poll. The first question is, have you registered to the Formathon on Eventbrite? So it's really key for us to know there. And is there something stopping you from signing up? So you don't have the time, you're not sure how it works, you're not sure how to make it to the sessions, you don't have a team, and you're not sure which challenge to sign up for. So just let us know quickly. Perfect. Okay, there's some interesting answers happening here. All right, so we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Perfect. So thank you. So you'll see the answers here. So we have about half of you guys who are registered, which is great, which I'm assuming you're either looking for a team or you want to know a bit more of what you're going to go through. And those of you who are not yet, hopefully we can address it. Not sure how it works, didn't have the time yet, and not sure if you'll find a team. Great, these are all things that we're going to answer specifically. So I see a few comments on the chat. Ruben, that's great. I'm glad you just got to hear about the Formathon today. Hopefully this information session gives you enough context for you to be able to make a decision and register or not register. And Marie-Claire, no worries, we're going to explain to you how the team formation works. So thank you for sharing the poll, Gigi. And we're going to go to the next one. So as I said, I gave, not coincidentally, I gave Formathon as an example of open innovation. And so that open innovation is really what I was talking about earlier. The second thing is we want the Formathon to really be an introduction to people who are looking to enter the FinTech space, but might not really be too familiar or might be a bit hesitant. So if you're interested in finance, if you're interested in innovation in finance, if you're interested in how technology can impact that, then this is really a great entry point for you to be able to work on it and do experiential learning. And then the last thing is we want to see solutions being offered. So I'll introduce some of those challenges, but really for us, the purpose is we want either that research to help a solution come up, or we want you to be able to build a product so we can start supporting you and working through it and eventually, ideally, become a startup in and of itself. So what you guys are going to be going through is as follows. We're going to be focusing on the early stage on problem definition. So you'll see what the challenges are. You're going to really be fine-tuning those challenges. And maybe I'll give a quick example here. So one of the challenges is how do we help students with their financial loans? I'm paraphrasing, but it's along those lines. So really is, what does that mean? Who are we talking about when we talk about students? What financial loans are we talking about? How much of a problem is this? And what area of this problem do we want to focus on? We then get into the ideation stage, which is the brainstorming sessions, coming up with ideas to what can solve the problem you've identified in the first section. Then we go into wireframing. That's really the prototyping phase, if you've heard of that. So it's lo-fi, hi-fi prototyping. On paper, we have programs that we'll be teaching you that are free and easy to use as you go through it. And then the idea is just to say, this is the solution. This is how the solution is going to look like. And last thing is testing. And that's really where you're going to be validating and testing with potential users of this solution. So you see, it's a very thorough experience that you guys will be going on. Our main focus, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is around experiential learning. So really giving you the opportunity to, in each of these 4 sections, be able to validate, be able to learn, or be able to implement if you've learned it before. So that's what the overall journey looks like. These are what the 2 tracks are. So I've already started to see some questions around, well, what is the difference between the startup track and the research track? And specifically the question about IP, I apologize, I forgot who asked it. So I'll come back to that, but we'll be able to explain this. So the startup track, perfect, Ruben, thank you. So the startup track is a track where you can pick a challenge and you're really focusing on building a startup. So if you don't want to build a startup, if it's not something that you're never interested in, you never want to work with an early stage startup team, maybe this is not the track for you. This track really is about building proof of concept. Now, you're not going to do 3 weeks and then come up and then be incorporated as a company. That's very rare. But in these 3 weeks, you'll start saying, okay, is there something worth pursuing for me to build a proof of concept, a prototype of some sorts, if you will, and then be able to work and develop it over the upcoming 9 weeks, and then be able to say, yes, this can be a startup. This can be something that we can incorporate later on. But so while you're not starting with that incorporation, oh, I'm sorry. I see that someone said the sound is gone. Can you still hear me? Okay, perfect. Sorry. Okay, perfect. Sorry, Nathan. I think that might be on your side. I'm going to let Gigi coordinate with you there. So I'm just going to keep going back with the startup track. So the idea again is if you do want to incorporate at some point, if you want to build something concrete, then the startup track is for you. Now, the research track is, the research track focuses on, as it's titled, developing deeper research. So really trying to understand a problem in more details. Now that problem is then going to be given to the ecosystem through the partners, through our work. And ideally what they're going to be doing is taking that research and building upon it to either build a solution or help make that decision. That's very abstract. So let me just clarify it a little bit more. It can be any financial institution. It can be any supporting organization, a regulatory body, a legal firm, an accounting service, etc. Or it can be an ecosystem organization, an accelerator like Holt Accelerator or Startup in Residence from Desjardins. They might take this research and say, this is great. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Now we can either switch this way or that way, or we can keep building and we know we have the right research to support that. So why should you pick the startup track versus the research track? Again, the startup track is if you want to build a business, if you want to be part of a founding team. The business is not all on you, it's you and your team. If you're looking to build that experience on building a startup and entrepreneurship, that's the track you should be picking. The research track is more of if you want to enter the fintech ecosystem, if you want to learn more about it, if you want to be a part of a solution but not build the solution yourself, then that is more of a track for you there. When it comes to IP, the startup track, you keep all the IP. The IP belongs to you. You're working on it yourself. You're leading that zone. So you keep the IP, and as you continue to build your product and your company, the IP is yours. We don't take it, you don't take it. When I say IP, I mean intellectual property. So intellectual property meaning if I come up with this phone idea and I tell you about it, who owns it, right? Is it my idea or is it your idea? So that's what I mean by IP. And it's a great question because a lot of people who enter these innovation challenges work a lot on it, but then don't get to keep that control of their product. So I just want to be very clear for those of you guys now. If you're in the startup track, you keep the IP. If you are on the research track, the IP then belongs to us or the ecosystem. And again, the idea of why we keep track of that IP is so that we can share it and that there can be research built on it or solutions that are built on it there as well. I hope that's clear now. Is intellectual property makes sense and the research and startup track makes sense? You can just let me know on the chat if there's any questions. I will come back to them. Perfect. So what are the challenges? Very, very exciting. For the Formathon challenges, we have 3. One is how can we support Canadians in rebuilding their savings? I cannot emphasize this enough to you, and I'm sure you guys are all experiencing it. It's very difficult for people right now who are potentially losing jobs, who are trying to understand, or who might have savings but are burning through it, who don't have savings, that don't know how to move forward. So this is one of the key ones that we're really trying to do. The second one is how can we increase security in financial applications? Everything is going digital. There's no longer a choice of are we comfortable, are we not comfortable? By virtue of self-isolating, we need still that access, and that's where everything's going remote. So how can we ensure security is part of that, which is a big concern for a lot of Canadians? And then the third challenge, which is the one I was mentioning before, is how can we prepare Canadians to catch up and manage their student loans? So these three challenges that you see in the yellow section are really the solutions you guys will be working on are really built in the structure of a company, right? So while you go through the Formathon journey, you're gonna really be working on that prototyping, that iteration, that final product. And then in contrast with the research, which are the three challenges, how will the uptake of open banking be impacted by COVID? This is such a hot topic. We've been talking about open banking for years. Now it's really been, is COVID gonna challenge open banking or is it gonna speed up open banking? So there's a lot of different players who are very interested in finding out that answer. The second one is how can we support entities with managing, issuing, and tracking loans? There's so many government organizations that have been moving incredibly fast, and it's a great thing for us. And for us, I mean Canadians at large, but how are we managing it? How are we tracking it, potentially auditing it? That's something that we really need to understand that would be very valuable to the government. So that's one thing there as well. And then lastly, through our partners at AI Launch Lab, is how might we help children understand the importance and value of money through conversational AI? So if you're really looking at the tech side, if you're really looking at coding, if you're looking at programming, whatever that might look like when we say conversational AI, is it a chat bot, etc. If you're really looking at that, that one is more the challenge for you. And again, here, the emphasis as you go through the Formathon tracks, when in the research track, we'll really be talking about deep diving into the problem, more so than a focus on the solution. Vice versa in the startup track, where we're going to be focusing on, great, you have an understanding of the problem, but what's the solution? And let's focus on that. All right. If there are no questions on these three challenges, then Gigi, you can go ahead and launch the third poll. So now that you know the different tracks, which track interests you? And then now that you know the challenges, from these challenges, which one interests you as well? All right, I see a few of you guys are still left to answer. So we'll leave it up for another 5 seconds. All right, so Gigi, we can close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Let me just let everybody know as well. So we see here the tracks that are most interesting. There's a heavy emphasis on the 69% in the startup track, which is really great to see. And then we see the challenge that people are interested in is how can we support Canadians in rebuilding their savings? I'm not surprised by that at all. I think that one hits close to home for all of us. So I'm glad to see that one from the startup track. And then from the research track, very quickly, I see the one that's most engaging is how will the uptake of open banking be impacted by COVID? So that's great. And we will be announcing a few more challenges as our partners come in. We do have one coming up from the AMF, which is our regulatory body. That one is very interesting, and it's around digital identity. So keep on the lookout for that. When that one becomes final, then we'll be able to give you that challenge there. All right, let's move on to the next one. So key information on the dates. You guys probably all know it starts on May 28th and it goes up until June 17th. Your commitment really is, other than the first day, which is the Thursday, is 3 Saturdays in a row from 9 to 3. And then on Wednesday evenings, which I'm going to explain a little bit more about in the evening from 5:30 to 7. So that's where you guys will be, that's what the logistics looks like from your perspective. However, you will of course have to do extra work outside of that with you and your team, so then you guys are flexible and you guys can adapt to what that looks like. It's an intense 3 weeks, but it's very exciting. There's a lot of adrenaline happening, and there's a lot of meetings and sessions that you're doing. But again, very flexible to your schedule, but also a lot of things to keep in mind. All right, so I'm gonna go into the preferred, Mohammed, I'm gonna come to your challenges in a second. You will be able to choose your preferred challenge. You'll have up until, we'll be sending you a questionnaire just to make sure we know which challenge you're interested in. but you will have up until the first day of the challenge of the Formathon to really get a better understanding of which challenge you should be focusing on. Okay. Ruben, I hope you're able to hear me now. And Gigi, if you can just coordinate with Ruben, please, for the audio there. So a lot of you guys are asking around how team formation works, and that's a great question. So maybe we'll launch the fourth poll before we get into that in more details. So again, just for me to understand, you don't have to have a team or anything. So the first question is, do you have a team formed already? Pretty straightforward. Now, I'm going to explain to you the second question. How would you best describe yourself? So some of you are answering, which is great. Those of you who are not, I'm guessing it's because you're not familiar with them. So we usually classify skill sets in three. It's a generalization for sure. The first one is hustler. So you're more in the business, the finance side, the strategy side of things. A hipster, you're more in the design, maybe the UX experience, the psychological behavior elements. So it's more of the artistic, creative sphere. And then lastly, the hacker, you have more of a tech skill set. You want to be programming, you want to be coding, etc. I know these are generalizations. We are very aware of that, but it's also very helpful for us to see where your strengths are or where you're leaning more towards, and then how we can match you guys as well in the future. So I'm going to let the rest of you guys fill it in now. Hopefully you have a better idea of the hustler, hipster, hacker. And great, Ruben. I'm glad to hear that. All right, so I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Excellent, and we can launch that poll. Great. So I see that about 63% of you are are looking for a team. Great. I'm going to explain how you're going to do that. 26 are just looking for more. Perfect. And 3 teams, or 3 people who have a team ready to go. Great to hear. Very, very great to hear. How would you best describe yourself? A hustler. We're between a hustler and a hacker. I'm not surprised at all. That's mostly the case. We do love to see a lot of hipsters. So if you have friends that have an artistic background, that are designers, that are able to do some of that stuff, invite them to the Formathon. It's always great to see a diversity. Of course, the strength is in diversity. So I'm going to get into how you guys are going to be building your teams. So we're giving you a few options throughout this team formation. Okay? So the first one is these sessions. We're going to give you a chance to talk to each other, to get to know how all of this works. We have a Senka set coming up next week, which I'm going to be talking about and giving you guys the details in a little bit. That's really just an opportunity for you to meet who's in the program and who's going to be doing what and who's interested in what. There, you guys are going to really be focusing on 3 things. What's the challenge that the other people I'm talking with are doing? 2, what's the skill sets they come in? Are they hipsters? Are they hustlers? It doesn't make sense to have a team full of 3 hustlers. You're really then missing the coding. How will you prototype quickly, etc. So, or a team of 3 hackers who just want to code but don't necessarily want to spend time coming up with the idea and all of that. So you really need a diversity in that. And thirdly, how do you get along with those people, right? So it's of course, it's a 3-week process. It's intense, but you should as well be having fun. And so giving you that opportunity to talk with them. That's up until the Formathon starts. When the Formathon starts, which is the Thursday, May 28th, we will be doing a specific training on team formation. So we'll be doing a better deep dive on assessment of, is this the right team for you? Are you truly diverse? And most importantly, which is where we really see the formation happening well, is do you all align in what you want the final goal to be? So if you're in the startup track, do you really see yourselves building a startup, or are you just going through the process and making sure you guys have the same team values and the same objectives at the end, which translates into the team charter. And lastly, then during that day as well, we'll be giving you another chance to be able to network with each other and get to know each other there as well. Okay? So we're giving you opportunities to network through Senka sets and the sessions when they start. We're giving you the chance to really identify what do you want to do, which challenge do you want to focus on. And lastly, we're giving you guys the framework we're giving you guys the framework that will be able to help you be able to form those teams specifically. Okay, great. So I hope that's clear for team formation, and we can go to the next one now. Industry night. So like I said, this is one of the elements that we're really excited about. So one of the biggest things when it comes to the Formathon is you can have 1,000,001 ideas, but you need to validate it with the industry. One of the strengths we have at FinTech Cadence is access to that industry. We've been working here For 5 years, we've built and developed connections across the whole industry. And I'm not saying this as bragging rights, but rather I'm saying this as one of the best ways to build a startup is to validate it every single touch point. And we are able to bring you the stakeholders that you might need to validate those challenges and to validate those ideas. So industry nights are Wednesday nights from 5:30 to 9, if I'm not mistaken, sorry. And you can think of it as an interaction speed dating kind of area. We'll be bringing the experts. You don't have to worry about that. If you do have contacts in the industry and you want to invite them, it's a great place to invite them. If you want to reach out to experts outside of it, you can invite them to the industry night as well. Maybe it's an easier ask for you and you're more comfortable with that if they're in the Formathon industry nights. That's also viable. We're very happy to help you guys out with that. But we'll also be bringing you a lot of mentors and industry experts who have industry expertise. That night, which will happen twice, I believe, on the Wednesday evenings, you will have a chance to network with those different industry experts. The first night the first week we'll be focusing on customer validation. Do we have the right solution? Do we really understand the problem? Is this the right target? The second week we'll be focusing on technology. So we'll be bringing experts who have the blockchain expertise or the AI expertise or coding expertise. Will be able to say, this is actually never going to work as a solution because you can't bring in blockchain here, or have you thought of integrating this type of machine learning in your solution to really elevate it to the next level? So that will be the second one. And then the third industry night will be happening around pitch practicing. So you guys will be presenting your final solution at the end in the finals. And so we're bringing experts who really have that expertise to be able to guide you on how to get your idea across. And so that's how we'll kind of close off there with the industry nights. So we can go on to the next slide there, Gigi. Yes, as am I, Chris. The industry nights are always some of the most exciting nights that we'll see, again, because you get a lot of value from the Formathon. Not only do you get frameworks, understanding how to build startups, understanding how to deep dive into problems, exposure into the fintech industry, connections with not only us, but yourselves and everything. But one of the greatest things is that you're able to leave having built a huge network for yourself within the financial industry. So we are so excited for those industry nights as well. All right. Lastly, after the 3 weeks, after you've gone through this program, it will be culminating in a final session. There, you'll be able to present your ideas to an industry, to our ecosystem, and they'll be looking to see what's the up and coming ideas or what's the up and coming research. So you guys are still in the early stages of development, but there's a lot of people in the industry who look at the Formathon as the future of the ideas that people will be working on in a year or 2 years as well. So it's great for us to have and invite the ecosystem. We're very proud of that. And then for you guys, again, it's a chance to showcase what you've been working on for 3 weeks intensively that will be adding value there. And of course, I'm gonna tease you with the prizes here. So we have some very, very exciting prizes. We have cash prizes of up to $20,000. So depending on the challenge that you guys are picking, we'll be clarifying that for you as well. You'll be up to $20,000 in prizes. There's the opportunity for 5 summer internships as well. So if you're interested in cash prizes, that's great. But if you also are looking for if you're looking for internships as well, there'll be 5 positions there that will be happening. And there'll be other supplementary prizes, meeting, C-suite level of different financial institutions, being able to get memberships into different organizations as well. So stay tuned for that, but we can tell you there's some really great prizes already being set up, and some of them of which I've mentioned to you there. I want to quickly touch on 2 success stories. So the first one comes from our research track. And I do apologize for the pictures. They're real people that are there. The first one is an example I'm going to give you about the AMF. So the AMF is the regulatory body based in Quebec. They are really looking at how can they build a fintech ecosystem. So during the Formathon last year, they gave the challenge of how can Montreal and Quebec specifically improve and build a fintech ecosystem. The people you're seeing in the picture, not including myself, and that's the picture on the left of you, they were the winning team. So what was great is they did a lot of research. Again, they were in the research track. They did a lot of research comparatively in terms of what are the cities that are similar to us: Atlanta, Stockholm, Liechtenstein, Switzerland. What are the countries and cities that are similar to the economy that we have here in Montreal and Quebec? And they were able then to say, this is how they build their fintech ecosystem. They've also did a lot of deep diving and understanding the fintech ecosystem in Canada and how it's developed over the years. So they're able to connect that and come up with 2 or 3 solutions. Remember, this is the research track. So most of their time was spent on research. And then the last part was spent on offering solutions. They did such a great job that a few months later, the AMF invited them. So again, the Quebec regulatory body invited them to present to over 100 of their employees to explain to them this is how they can do the fintech they can build the fintech ecosystem here in Montreal. So why is that important to you? Because what can be perceived as, I'm coming into a competition, I'm working on some research, that's great. It doesn't stop there. What we've seen time and time again is large organization, reputable, incredible organization, really appreciate this research and take the research and present it not only to their employees, but stand behind it and bring it to them and bring it to the ecosystem at large as well. So there's lots of value there. The other example I'll give you is of Antoine, Pedro, and Melanie, which is the other small picture on your right side with the National Bank logo. So they won the National Bank competition 2 years ago in the Formathon. And there they were trying to see, they had a company called Nudge, and they were trying to see how you could move people from one financial institution to the other. They won the competition. They worked with National Bank over the 9 weeks that preceded the 3-week competition. They tried to build a proof of concept. It was good, but it wasn't very strong. Through no one's fault, they realized, okay, this is an idea that's just not going to work. It's too difficult to move people from financial institution to financial institution. So instead, they decided to close down that idea for the moment. And just recently, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, if you remember, they decided to, in the same team, because they had such a great experience and a great working relationship during the Formathon 2 years ago, decided to apply to National Bank's wealth management competition. They didn't have an idea before the competition started. They applied. Out of 68 teams, they were selected to be the top 5. And they were one of the strongest teams that graduated from that top 5. So they won $10,000, and now they're building a new startup called Mind the Gap that focuses on helping Canadians when they have a family member pass away, helping them with the estate management and planning. So you see 2 different stories, but really 2 excellent successes that we have into it. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So 2 different stories, one in the startup track, one in the research track, where you can see and take all of this information and see where they can progress into different areas, but how much the ecosystem appreciates all of that. So I'm going to pause here and just a few things before we get into the Q&A. One, I did mention that there is a 5 cassette happening. So like I said, that's not this Friday, that's next Friday. It's an opportunity for you to meet and interact with people and talk to people. It's now just been shared on the chat by Gigi, so you're able to access it. It's free to go in, of course. Again, the idea is just to give you an opportunity to get to know each other in a better way and more casual setting. 2, if you are still interested in reaching out to for the Formathon, if you haven't registered yet, also going to be giving you a 30% discount. It's not an expensive program by any means. I think altogether it comes out to $25 to $30. Please forgive me on the amount. I am probably over reaching there, but there's a 30% discount rate discount for you there. And once you've registered for the Formathon, we will be following up with you with an onboarding package so that you get to see all of this information that we said in more details, but you will have access to this recording with a follow-up email, and we'll be sharing the slides with you as well. That's really it from our side. I'm just going to open up the floor now and see if you guys have any questions that you guys would like to ask. Perfect. Thank you, Mendel. So the sponsors for the program vary. So we have the Autorité Monétaire Financière, sorry for my brutal French accent there, which is the AMF, like I was talking about, the regulatory body. We have AI Launch Lab as well, and we'll be announcing some great, we're actually really excited to be able to announce them. We cannot announce them yet. There's still some lines crossing, contracts being signed, but we have some sponsors coming up in the next few days. So just keep a lookout on our social media, and we'll be announcing that information. So thank you, Mendel, for the question. It is a virtual 5 cassette, Mohammed, as will be the case from now until forever. I'm kidding. From now until the next few months. So the 5 cassette will be sending you guys, as we said, Gigi just did the link, so you're able to register on it. It's a Zoom link. We'll be on here, and we'll be breaking it out into breakout rooms so you guys will get to meet each other in a more intimate, close setting. Mary Claire, I see your question is, what happens if you do not find a team? That's often the case when people are just about to enter, when people are about to enter the Formathon. It's very nerve-wracking. You're not really sure, how do I find a team? How do I not find a team? Here, what I'll say is trust in the fact that this is our 4th Formathon. We know what it takes to develop and build a team relationship. We understand it's a bit unclear for you when you don't know who's participating in it specifically. So be there in the 5 cassette. You'll start to get a better idea, but trust that by the sessions, the first few sessions, we'll have given you the guidelines and the ability to form a team. It's very, very, very rare for us to have a team, somebody who doesn't find a team to go through that process. So hopefully, Mary Claire, that answers your questions. Chris, the dress code for Senkaset is anything above the waist has to look professional, and anything below the waist is your own business. I think there were some other questions, so I'm going to keep going there. So, okay, Ruben, I see your question. What if we already have a startup idea? Do you help us to develop our startup, even if it's not exactly the same idea as your challenges? So here, if you do have an idea that does not relate to the challenges, we have another program, and that's the Sandbox program. So I'm going to ask Gigi to share her email in the chat. And if that's the case, then she can set up a call with you so that you can see how we can support you. I would still encourage you to see if there's any way your idea can link to a challenge, because then you can go through the program and you can get all that content and all those industry experts. The Sandbox is really us coaching you from a distance, if you will, where you'll still be building it on your own, and we'll be touching base with you every now and then. So can you do both the Sandbox and the Formathon? That's a great question, JF. I think it's more intuitive for you to focus on the Formathon. The Sandbox is an ongoing yearly program. It's open at any time. We take applicants as they come in. So there's no limitation, there's no deadline for the Sandbox. You're not missing out there. So if you can have a solution that's linked to those challenges, it's more advantageous for you to focus on the Formathon. Once you're finished, then you have something a bit more concrete, you can go into the Sandbox. So no stress is there, there's no deadline, and there's no capacity for the number of startups or teams that we take in the Sandbox. So you shouldn't worry about that. Gigi also shared her address there, so thank you for that. All right, I'm going to go into James' question. I'm a bit concerned because your background is predominantly in mathematics and programming, but I'm very new to finance. Is this common for participants? It is common. We definitely have people who are experienced in finance. So you'll get all of these backgrounds. I myself am more experienced in finance, and you have seen my tech ability diminishes by the day, although it should be getting better. I'm not sure why it doesn't. So it really doesn't matter what your background specifically is. In the past, in our Formathon, so we have around 100 participants that participate in the Formathon year after year. For your skill set, it's fine if you're mathematics and programming. It's actually an asset. You will find people, and we'll encourage you to match people with who have the financial background, so that you can able to do that. And that's why we really focus on the hacker, hipster, hustler process. Okay, so don't worry, James. Any skill set that you come in is great. If you knew nothing about finance, and if you knew nothing about technology, and you were still like, I still want to know about this, I would still encourage you, because that's exactly the purpose. We build on your knowledge, and we give you that opportunity to build on that. So hopefully that answers your question, James. And I'm sorry, actually, my colleague just reminded me as well. Gigi, she studied anthropology and sociology, right? So it really doesn't matter what your background is coming into this program. Zach, your question, will the competition use Agrise? It will not. We have worked with Agrise before. We have a very good relationship with them. It just will not be using Agrise for this. We think the easiest process for us at this moment is to use Google Drive and then the tech platforms, which we'll be sharing with you guys. Okay. Valerie, will there be data sources provided for the research track? We are doing our best to give you some of those research track, some of those data points. We do have organizations that we've worked with. We do have some Sandbox we're in a negotiation with right now, but that's also part of the fun of working on it, is can you also find data that's accessible openly as well, right? So we will do our best, and we encourage you as well to bring in that data parts as well. I'm just gonna look very quickly in terms of the other questions. I think, Ruben, you're good on yours. Apply as a team. So how many people max for the team? I see it's been in the chat, but just in case somebody else has that question, I'm going to answer it too. So the team is from 3 to 5 members. And that applies for both the research team and the research track and the startup track, sorry. So Ruben, I think you're good. Valerie, you're good. James and Zach. Perfect. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, I just want to again correct that, because my answer differs from the one in the Q&A. The team capacity ranges from 3 to 5 team members. Okay, so it's not 3 to 4, just so that everyone's clear there. Mendel, you will have up until next week for the 30% discount. So we'll give you until the Senkaset so that you'll be able to see that. Mary Claire is asking everybody, what's the challenge, or what's the challenge that you've seen contestants face the most? Oh, sorry, that's to us. Okay. So what's the challenge we've seen contestants face is, that's a really great question, Mary Claire. I think before the Formathon starts, the question around team formation is often the biggest question. In the past, we've had issues with people around IP, but now the IP is very clear. You own 100% of it in the startup track, and then you own none of it in the research track. The other thing is not valuing the importance of validation. So we often say that, and I think anyone who comes into a competition and hears validation, 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 you're like, yeah, okay, cool, we get it. We have to validate, that's perfect. We want to build a product, let's build a product. We want to prototype, let's prototype. But for us, validation, which means putting your ideas and hypotheses in front of people who might be facing these problems or solutions right away, is the most important thing, because you could be building a product that no one is going to work on. And that's really heartbreaking, because we see you guys spend 3 weeks building a solution, go and present it to industry during your finals, and then the industry's like, that would never work. It would never work. So we don't want to see those kind of solutions, because it's a waste of your time. So we really emphasize and encourage that validation process. And Valerie's question, what is the end goal of the research track problems? Is it data-centric research outcome, model creation prediction, or is it a literature research paper? Yeah, so it leans more heavily on the first one, but it's for both. So really the idea is that you've spent and you can validate through, or you can stand behind your research with data-driven information, data-driven points, and like you said, either through models or predictions, but that you also can say, these are the 3 recommendations we would have for this specific challenge. And maybe what will be less abstract is, Gigi, can you go back very quickly to the challenges slide? Thank you. So let's take the first example of how will the uptake of open banking be impacted by COVID? So you can see really here, the answers are going to be more around the predictions, analytics, data. It will have case studies, what's happened in the UK, what's happening in Brazil now, why is Canada not implemented open banking before COVID, what would be the things that allow them to implement open banking, etc. And then how does that parallel with what's happening in COVID? I'm just giving you very high level elements, Valerie, just so that you can have something more concrete to understand. So there, we're really looking at that data support, a thesis and a final hypothesis and a final thesis behind that. That information is going to be valued and presented, just to kind of give you a better idea of what's the end goal there, will be presented to the industry, potentially government officials, anyone who might have anything to do with open banking, so that they can start taking that research and develop it further onwards. So I hope that gives you a bit of clarity and answers your question, Valerie. Cool. Any other questions? All right, so before you guys all run away, we have a poll, I am told. And so we'll be launching it really quickly. So now that we've hopefully answered some of your questions, are you thinking about signing up? Are you still not sure? And if you're not sure, please just put it in the chat, because there might be a question you're a bit hesitant to ask, and we might have an easy answer for it. So don't be worried if you're not comfortable with asking it. I encourage you to ask any questions that might at least help clarify or help you make your decision. So you don't have to have a decision now, but if you need an answer to help you make the decision, let us know. Again, Gigi has put it there, but you can also let us know here. So Chris, will there be different groups working on the same challenge? Yes, there will be. There's no limits to the number of groups that can work on a challenge. So you can be 5 different groups working on how the uptake of open banking will be impacted by COVID. So that's that for you, Chris. Anyone else? No? Okay, so Gigi, if you can share the poll. Perfect. So we have 69% of you who are looking to register and 31% of you who are still not sure. So again, I'm gonna leave it open in case you have any questions still. But like Gigi has shared on the chat, if you do have any questions, please email us at info@fintechcadence.com and we'll be able to get through them. 3 other questions that were just added, so let me go through them quickly. Yes, I will absolutely. So that's a great question. How do we go over Hustler, Hipster, Hacker? So Hustler is, and again, I will preface it by saying very generic, but Hustler are usually people with the business background. So the finance, the strategy, who really are excited or motivated or passionate by that sector or that process of building the startup. So how do I build the right team? How do I do all of that? 2, the hipster are more the creatives or the designers, right? So those who might know the UX, UI part of it, or those who might be able to say, this is the graphic design part of it, etc. So hipster is really the artistic, the creative. And lastly, hacker, and that's the coder or the programmer, those who really just want to spend hours coding and not necessarily worrying about what it looks like in the front end, or not necessarily worried about what does that look like as a product and what does the revenue model look like either. Okay? So again, I do want to emphasize, we know this is a generalization, but it's very helpful for you guys in the beginning to be able to see, okay, what are people's strengths to form the right team. The next question is, do groups get to choose which challenges they work on? Absolutely. So there, at no point do we decide what challenge you work on. That's completely up to you. We don't, it's of no value for us to force you to work on a specific challenge. It's actually only valuable for us to encourage you guys in the challenge you're interested in, to be able to support you there. Mendel, I see it says, for you, it depends on the sponsors. I want internships or a hackathon and the company just going after. Okay, perfect. So Mendel, I'm not sure I understand there, but I saw that they were you guys sponsor last year. So maybe Mendel, we can touch base with you after just to clarify there. But I will say for us, we work very closely with the partners that we bring on. We take this Formathon very seriously, and we have seen that our partners take it very seriously. And we really bring on partners that are engaged and are looking to support the fintech ecosystem. So we're very careful with who we bring on. And we really are, we put a lot of emphasis on making sure they're going to be committed to the solution building part of it and are committed and are there as well. So hopefully, Mendel, that clarifies a little bit, but I'm very interested to see, who those sponsors were and how we can make sure that does not happen. Okay, I see. I wanted to know if all the team members will be the co-founders of the potential startup. Yeah. So when I said on the first day, you guys will be doing what we call the team charter. That is really important for you guys. So we'll help you guide those conversations, because shares is often a big part of, do you own the shares? Do I own the shares? So what we usually encourage is a 3-week commitment and agreement. So in the next 3 weeks, as we go through the competition, we agree that we will make a decision on how the share breakup will be once the competition is over. When you don't know people and you're just building your ideas and you're so early in the first 3 weeks that there's really nothing there. I'm just going to ask you to go on mute, please. Thank you. So when you are, when you're still going through the first 3 weeks and it's really, really early stage, you can't really say this is going to be who the co-founders are of the startup, or this is who's going to be owning the IP. But these are very sensitive conversations and they're very case by case. So what we generally suggest is, in the beginning of the competition, you guys all agree that you will have that discussion in terms of shares and ownership of the idea once you're done, because those 3 weeks really shows who's been committed, who comes to the sessions, who's really working on the product, and you guys have a better retroactive data point or data set for who should be able to move forward with the idea. Ahmed, I hope that clarifies it. Again, okay, so Ahmed, let me know if I didn't answer you, but then again, if all, let me just quickly go through that again. If all team members will be the co-founders of potential startup. So again, yeah, so that's not to be decided in the beginning. That goes all the way till the end in the 3 weeks, which is what we encourage. Unless you guys know each other really, really well, and you're like, okay, we're gonna build it, we're gonna be co-founders, and it's an equal share structure. Let's just move on with this and go through the 3 weeks, then it's good to go. Perfect, okay, great, Ahmed. All right, guys, so if there's no other questions, just a reminder, we're gonna be sending you those 2 links. One, the 5 cassette code. Highly encourage you, even if you haven't registered for the Formathon, to come to that 5 cassette, because you get a chance to speak to people. It's not a presentation. You'll be put into small breakout rooms where you get to meet each other. 2, a 30% discount rate for you to register to the Formathon. So that will be sent to you. We'll be sending that email for you with all of the information, the slides, and the recording will be shared as well. So we'll be staying here for the next 5 minutes or so in case some of you guys do want to ask questions. For everybody else, you're more than welcome to leave if you want. I will say one last thing is, if you want to share your LinkedIn on the chat, please feel free to do so, and then you guys can start adding each other on the LinkedIn and on LinkedIn and start talking to each other from now as well. Okay, so just a reminder again, thank you very much for being here and listening to us. Share your LinkedIn if you want. Sometimes I go old school on the LinkedIn. So share your LinkedIn if you want on the chat. And otherwise we're hanging around here for another few minutes to answer any questions you guys might have that you weren't comfortable asking earlier. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, and just really quickly, make sure you add your LinkedIn in the button, all panelists and attendees, just to make sure that everybody can see your profile.
It was our pleasure, Mendel. Thank you. Great. Glad to hear, Alexander. Hope to see you registered.